Hey guys, welcome back to Tops Outdoor Adventures. Getting a couple videos here just a couple days apart, but my last video I posted was on minutes of angle and got a few comments on that, and that's prompted me to do another video to address some questions. Get my phone turned back on. This video is for Tony out there. Tony says, thanks for this video, very clear explanation of minutes of angle. Well, thank you, sir. Keep the videos coming. I'll do that as long as you guys keep giving me ideas. By the way, do you take into consideration altitude, humidity, air density due to moisture, or light to heavy rain? Asking because I don't really know what to do in those situations. If I'm in a blind, then I would have a clear scope and consider taking a 300 to 400 yard shot in the rain or in the sleet. He goes on to say, talking about higher elevations, what assumptions or adjustments do I need to make on my minutes of angle? Well, there's a couple things to talk about there. Let's start out with, do you take into consideration, let me turn my notifications off here so the gunshots don't keep interrupting us. Do I take into consideration altitude, humidity, also pressure? Barometric pressure is important, or light and heavy rain. The direct answer to that is no, okay? For practical shooting purposes, those of us that are out hunting, no, I don't. Now, you did mention altitude. I can tell you that a rifle zeroed at sea level, for example, will not have the same footprint downrange if you go out to where you're in 3,000 feet or more of elevation. As you go up in elevation, the air gets thinner, and that changes the flight of the bullet. So, direct answer to a direct question is yes, on altitude. If there's a big change, I will re-zero my weapon when I get to wherever I'm going. It's always a good idea to do that anyway, to make sure that you haven't bumped the scope off, whether it was the guy throwing your gun case around underneath the airplane or you bouncing it down the road. So, let's see, fingerprint again. As far as light rain, heavy rain, I've never factored that in. Like I say, I'm approaching this from a no more than 500 yard shot. So, your typical hunting applications, which I'm going to go on record and tell you, I kind of hate watching those shows like Long Range Pursuits and everything else, where you're seeing these guys taking these 800, 900, 1,000, 1,100 yard shots on game. Let's take, for example, an elk at 1,000 yards. Off the top of my head, I do not know, for example, the time of flight on a 150 grain 308 Winchester round going 1,000 yards. Years ago, I had room to remember that. Now I'm old, I forget that stuff. But the direction I'm headed is, you can do everything right all the way up to squeezing that trigger, and in the time that that bullet's in the air, that elk can decide to take one step forward to get that little bite of grass or whatever just outside of his reach, and that one stride of an adult elk might move that animal 2.5 foot. Okay, so you've done everything right at 1,000 yards, but you've just gut shot this elk through nobody's fault other than what I consider to be bad judgment. Before I take a 1,000 yard shot at an elk, I'm really going to work on my hunting skills. But that's neither here nor there, that's an opinion. Let's see if we can roll on to another question here. Let's see, rain or sleet, no. Oh, talking about making corrections for altitude, humidity, air pressure, and density. Yeah, we do, and we also correct for how far the earth rotates based on the direction we're firing while the bullet's in air. But like I say, that's when you're really trying to put the old maul bell out there and really reach out and touch something. Hunting applications, no big deal. Let's see. When I first read your question about higher elevations, I started down the road of, when I was growing up, Dad and Grandpap used to say, well, if you're shooting downhill, you got to hold low because that bullet's rising. When you're shooting uphill, make sure you hold a little high because that bullet's bucking gravity the whole way. Well, that's not the case. And let me go ahead and explain this to you. When we look at a target, okay, what we judge is something called slope distance. How far do I think it is from my eyeball to that target? And we may say, hey, that's 400 yards. But let's say that 400 yards is a really uphill or downhill shot. Let's take a look at this deal right here if I can hold it up. Okay, up here on the top, right by my nose, that's where my shooter is, and he's sitting on the edge of the Grand Canyon. Well, he looks down into the bottom of that canyon or whatever, and he says, wow, that bighorn sheep or whatever down there is 500 or 600 yards away from me. Now, he's judging that based on this slope distance, what he sees with the human eye. The actual range is the distance from where he is out to the target on a level plane. Does that make sense? So your eyeball may look up there and say that's a 300 yard shot, but in reality it may only be 50 yards of what we call horizontal distance. Now if you take a 50 yard horizontal shot with 300 yard settings, you're going to miss. So bullets rising and falling. Okay, bullets do not do that. All right. A bullet is affected by gravity equally along its entire trajectory. All right. So from the time you pull the trigger and that bullet leaves the barrel, gravity is starting to pull it down. You've got the explosion of powder behind it, the pressure that's built up that gives it its velocity. The minute that round exits the end of the barrel and all that pressure is relieved from behind it, it begins to slow down. Okay? So, where am I headed with this? Bullets don't rise because they don't have like a little jet engine on the back of them and they don't have wings. What we don't realize, or what some people don't realize, is that your rifle scope and your barrel are not parallel to each other. Your rifle, you can't see it, but your rifle barrel actually runs a little uphill if this was downrange. Your scope sits parallel to the ground. So the bullet crosses your trajectory in two places, something called a near zero and a far zero. And people have, old timers for years have said, hey, the bullet's still rising. It's actually not rising. It was launched on that trajectory from the time it started down the barrel. Okay, because the barrel does run slightly uphill. Gravity affects it from the time it leaves the barrel. As the bullet slows down, the gravity appears to have more effect, and the back end of a trajectory drops a lot steeper than the front of it. What happens there is the bullet is moving 3,000 feet per second when it comes out of the barrel. So gravity's pulling it down. But as that round slows down to 2,000 feet per second, it's not moving through the air as fast, and gravity is getting it what appears to be a little more effect on it. So, what are the takeaways from this? Yeah, we do account for a lot of stuff, but unless you're shooting, unless you're taking 900, 1,000, 1,100 yard shots or beyond, I don't really worry about atmospheric pressure, temperature, things of that nature. And in a hunting situation, it's just not going to make a difference. What do we take away from altitudes? If I sight my rifle in at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, which is like 10 meters above sea level, and I'm going on Rocky Mountain elk hunt in Colorado, and I'm going to be up 7,000 feet, I better re-zero my rifle. That's where the altitude plays a game. Another thing where altitude plays a game is where we get the idea that the deer is not as far away, for example, as it actually is. And that's that's slope distance, which we see with the eye, compared to the actual horizontal distance. You always want to shoot the horizontal distance, not the slope distance. And it doesn't matter whether the target's down here, you're up here, or the target's up here and you're down here. Horizontal distance is horizontal distance. one thing to think about, most of the electronic rangefinders nowadays, they either have, or you either have the option of, or it automatically does, calibrate for the angle of the rangefinder so that it works that Pythagorean theorem out for you. Let's see, did we hit all the wickets? I think that hit all the wickets. If I didn't, or if I need to break that down some more, let me know. If not, hey, thanks for the question, thanks for the comment. Shoot me some more. I tell my kids all the time, I'm getting old, there's a little bit of knowledge up here, you might want to pull it out while I'm still here to give it to you. But anyway, like I said, I'm glad you guys watched the video, and that's it for now. We'll talk to you down the road. Oh, hey, hit the like, hit subscribe, thumbs up, all that cool guy stuff, share some videos. Maybe I'll get internet famous one day. I did have a TikTok the other day. Just a stupid little thing. It was snowing out here. I walked outside, held my phone up, had all the snow behind me, and I said something like, hey, for all my followers up north, your weather's down here running around my farm all drunked up and acting a fool. I said, y'all need to come down here and get it. That TikTok has 190,000 views. Couldn't believe it. Anyway, y'all take care. Thanks for watching.